When I came to that very familiar passage in 1 Corinthians 13 this week, I saw something unexpected, something that slipped out between the very familiar words that ring in our ear. For now we look into a glass dimly. Then we shall see face to face. Looking into glass, seeing dimly, isn't that what we're doing right now? On smartphones and laptops and desktops and even some widescreen TVs, looking into glass, looking at and for each other, looking for signs of God and images of hope, seeing imperfectly. We'd like to play with this image this morning. What does it mean to look, hear, gaze at ourselves, others, and God in the glass of all the devices that make this Zoom call possible? To help me listen to the text in a new way, I've invited Jessica Tezen to remix the text for us, to weave in what she sees and hears. We have 3 short dialogues between poet and preacher. We call glass, light, reflection. Between each, we respond with a simple refrain, light from light, that will be led by Isabella and Jesse. Please sing along with them when you see them.
I never used this thing before. It's too dark in here. They can't see me. Hello? Hello? Can you hear me? Turn your mic on. He froze again. They look so different. Older. You've grown so much. Who knew that a few weeks working from home would turn into 2 years? Looking through this glass, I have felt parts of myself disappear. Living on my own, once a staple of pride, suddenly doesn't make me feel so alive. Looking through this glass, I'm reminded of the people I miss. Looking through this screen, I'm reminded I am here in time and you are there in time, and the only thing that continues to move is time. And time is never really enough. Through a glass darkly, an imperfect vision of reality. This has been our reality, through a glass darkly. Because the screen is never clean enough. The connection is never perfect enough. The video is never seamless enough. The audio is never loud enough. The time is never long enough. But right now, in this moment, this is enough. This is a new form of richness, an authentic witness to games, dates, church, travel, new business, and even sickness. An authentic witness. This screen has been a lifeline even when life is on the line. Even as life has moved online, this screen has been my eyes, ears, and touch. And even if the audio and internet cut out, I'll sit and I'll wait. Looking through a glass darkly, an imperfect vision of reality, but no less reality. I'll sit and I'll wait. Time for church. Turn on my camera. Mic off. Thank God for the community.
For your rays
Have you ever had the chance to go uptown to St. John the Divine at 112th Street? When I was in grad school, I got to work for a while at St. John's. I had a key to the place, and one of my delights was coming in early in the morning when the cathedral was empty to watch the light streaming through the colored glass and dancing across that enormous nave, 2 football fields long. Take a look at the image we had on the cover of the bulletin today. This is a detail from a window in one of the bays along the south side of the nave of St. John's. It's called the communications window. And if we were standing underneath that window, we could see depictions of the giving of the law to Moses, the printing press, the Gutenberg Bible, the telegraph, the linotype. And this image you're looking at today, a small section of the window, a very early representation of broadcasting. On the left, there's a worker stringing electrical lines to a utility pole. And in the 20s and 30s, when this window was made, the poles would be sprouting across the country, literally stringing the world together. And on the right is a representation of a prototype television from 1925. The people first seeing this window probably would not have heard of television. So why do you suppose the crafters of this window almost 100 years ago would hallow a fuzzy black and white image in a box? A technology still almost unknown whose impact on our culture was not even imagined by most. Why is this small, colorless square of glass within stained glass given place side by side with saints and apostles, divine stories, the beauty of creation, and the Holy Trinity itself? What is sacred about that small piece of glass? Let's go back to the window. What do you see in that TV, the small square above the man's head? Do you see the Gothic arched window, the railing, the column? Yes. Standing at the altar in the cathedral, holding out a plate with the communion bread, while the communion cup sits on the table in front of them. When we look out that glass, we're also looking back and into the cathedral. We're looking at worship, transformed and transmitted back, an electronic window in its infancy, but already reaching towards connections. The digital minister at Riverside Church, Jim Keat, is fond of saying, virtual is not the opposite of real. And we know that your virtual face in my Zoom gallery is actually pixels of light that glow on my laptop screen to try to represent you to me. You're being digitized into millions of numbers every second that can be reassembled here on my laptop once they get to me. And these numbers, these pixels of light, are not you, but they are not you. It is, as Jessica says, a lifeline when life is on the line. It is worship that enlarges a congregation beyond the limits of West 40th Street, a worship that meets us where we are, and worship that records and replays and remixes, worship that texts, worship that sings, worship that laughs, worship that dances on the surface of glass. These laptop and computer monitors, these smartphone screens, these widescreen TV monitors, glass. Metro is giving birth to worship beyond boundaries, yet dimly seen, still emerging, coming into focus. The Spirit, I think, brooding over light and glass.
Light. Screen light, sunlight, lamp light, phone light, daylight, cars light, Zoom light, more light, more light, more light. When you look to the light, the darkness won't last forever. When you look to the light, it won't be forever until we get together. I see the light coming over the horizon, Breaking through the mountains, I'm bringing the count in. Look to the light. Dwell in it like you do when the sun first touches your face. Look to the light with a big smile like when Zoom first reveals your face. Look to the light. We're bringing the light in. I see the light coming over the horizon, breaking through the mountains. If I only see you through this screen light, know that I've fallen in love with you 1,000 times. And even though this screen light won't replace my hands on your face, know that I'll do it 1,000 times more if you desire. Because it is your reflection that brings the light in. Let's take advantage of the time we are both in. Thank God for community. We're bringing the light in.
Light of light eternal, all things penetrating, for your rays our souls are waiting. Ever so would we do, light from you obtaining, strength to serve you gaining.
Light. When Wilma and I first moved to New York 35 years ago in January 1987, one of our first impressions was that it was so dark. We arrived the first week of the new year to heavy snow, and the days were far grayer and shorter than the brilliant blue skies and days of Texas. It seemed like every room had half the light bulbs that it really needed. Windows were small and opened onto narrow gaps between buildings which the sun glancingly hit once a day. We missed the light. Maybe yesterday, if you were in New York, you missed the light. A blustery, snowy day. Craving sunlight, warmth, longer days. Perhaps that's why I can't read today's passage without the King James Version that I learned in my childhood echoing in my ear. For now we see through a glass, darkly. Indeed, if Paul were looking through the glass of the first century, it would have been darkly, dimly. Early Roman glass was usually used for bottos, but it could be made into panes. First, it was blown into a cylinder, the bottom cut off, unrolled to flat, and then cut into small panes. But the surface was uneven, and the glass was colored. Light came through, though not all, and distorted. Or perhaps Paul means mirror. Corinthian mirrors were famous. They were made of bronze, and ordinary people couldn't afford them, but even they were prone to corrosion and reflected only part of the light, dimly, darkly. Glass, mirror, looking at and through, glass and mirror looking for light. On and through these panes of glass and mirror, light danced and wiggled and struggled back to Paul's eye. An image distorted, out of focus, there, but just out of reach. I think it's like the light for which we yearn in this moment. In this season of Epiphany 2022, do you also hunger for light? When light teases between the clouds of an overcast sky, but then hides. When light glimmers in the hope of a promise just beyond fulfilled. When light flickers in the assurance of faith, crowded by doubt. Do you hunger for light? Light at the end of this pandemic tunnel? Light for a way to perform when theaters close and agents go silent? Light for jackets to fill our clothes closet light for children who are in and out and in classes, light for relationships where love is broken, light for nations that mass for war, light for a congregation, 1 year into an interim, looking dimly for the way ahead. Where do we look for light? I begin by looking into the glass in front of me, a gallery of metro in light. As the Gospel of Matthew would say, you, the light of the world, a light that cannot be hidden, a community of light, a light that must be seen.
I never really stared at my own reflection. Perhaps it was for my own protection, because in staring too long, I would have to admit to myself all of my imperfections. But can you tell me what you really see? Behind the long hair, perfume, and smile, can you tell me what you really see? Aside from the 9 to 5, after Sunday morning, independent from everything I do, can you tell me what you really see? Does my reflection remind you of the one you praise? Can you see God in me when I'm sick of church? Can you see God in me when I'm tired of praying? If all we have today is through this screen, can you really see God in me? I often wonder, what does God see in us? If nothing that we have we can take with us, then what does God really see in us? Is it just us? Perfectly imperfect individuals, created with love by the source of love? Made of love by perfect love? Does God look at us and fall in love with God's reflection? If so, I'll boast in the love of our God. If so, I'll look at you and fall in love 1,000 times over, coming face to face with God.
Light of light eternal, all things penetrating, for your rays our souls are waiting. Ever so would we do, light from you obtaining, strength to serve you gaining.
Reflection. What do you see when we look into, through, behind, and between glass? In the narrow window of time after Wilma and I retired in the fall of 2019 and the lockdowns in early 2020, we were able to house sit for friends in Barcelona for a month. We walked from one end of the city to the other, museums, Christmas street markets, festivals, food. It was a beautiful, magical month. But one of my favorite evenings of our trip was a chance to experience a citywide retrospective of the work of video artist Bill Viola. Viola has pioneered the use of video as an art form. He often uses extreme slow motion to allow us to witness the emotions of sorrow, of laughter, surprise. So for 5 hours that night in Barcelona, I drug Wilma from one theater to another to watch painstakingly slow videos of people looking, reacting, walking, floating, engulfed in water and flame. The highlight for me of this immersive evening was a chance to see this work. In a museum at the top of Gaudi's Casa Mia, in a room by itself, are two cathode ray tubes, the kind we used to have in TVs and computer monitors. One sits on a pedestal facing up while another hovers above it, upside down, suspended from a similar pedestal. To look at the images, one must peer in from the side. On the bottom screen is the artist's mother, filmed in 1991 in the days just before her death. Hovering a few inches away on top is an infant soon after birth. Can you see both faces? One is on one screen and one is on another, but the two on top. You cannot look at either without seeing the other. The child reflects on the image of the mother and the mother on the child. We're looking into that space between, and we see both death and birth in either direction. Image and reflection rest on top of one another. When I look at my laptop this morning, I see you. But on top of you is a dim reflection of my own face. In the mystery of light, the bright sun that is coming in over here bounces off my face and projects it onto the laptop screen, where it bounces back to my eye. And the screen is both mirror and glass, you shining through my reflected image. Shimmering off the surface of this screen and your screen, our faces lay on top of each other. I take comfort in this. Glass, light, reflection. Why do we fight Zoom and hybrid tech and spotty Wi-Fi to reach for such an imperfect seeing? Because looking back, face beside face, face on face, my face to yours, yours to mine, perhaps we see in the gap between something more, an image that reflects skin to glass and back. It's an image of the face beyond our faces, the face of the one whose image we bear. Can you make it out? Can you see it? Do you have to strain too hard to imagine the face of Christ? Can you see between the smudges and fingerprints on your screen the face of the divine mirrored in your face and mine? You and I, created to bear the likeness of God, the light of God, reflecting divinity in pixels on glass. These are the faces by which we dare face what is in front of us. This moment, this city, this community, your face, my face, the face of God, face to face. And as we look, we pray with Paul, who writes again in his second letter to the Corinthians, that we, with unveiled faces, beholding the glory of God through a glass, might be transformed into the same image from glory to glory, even as the Spirit of God. So friends, when I look for you on this glass in front of me, on Zoom or Instagram or texts or emails, I long for your light, and for the light that is beyond and more than anything we might hope and imagine. My prayer for you is that you too may see the light. May you hold the light. May you be the light.